Bill Gates, co-founder of Microsoft and a renowned philanthropist. Gates' insightful speech given at Harvard touches upon his experiences and calls for global action. Let's learn some English from this inspirational figure.
Thank you. President Bach, former President Rudenstein, incoming President Faust, members of the Harvard Corporation and the Board of Overseers, members of the faculty, parents, and especially the graduates. I've been waiting more than 30 years to say this. Dad, I always told you I'd come back and get my degree.
Gates begins with thank you, a polite way to start addresses. He specifically mentions titles like president and members, signifying respect. The present perfect I've been waiting shows long-anticipated moments. The contraction I'd in I'd come back indicates a past intention or promise.
I want to thank Harvard for this honor. I'll be changing my job next year, and it will be nice to finally have a college degree on my resume. I applaud the graduates for taking a much more direct route to your degrees. For my part, I'm just happy that the Crimson called me Harvard's most successful dropout. I guess that makes me valedictorian of my own special class. I did the best of everyone who failed. But I also want to be recognized as the guy who got Steve Ballmer to drop out of business school. I'm a bad influence. That's why I was invited to speak at your graduation. If I'd spoken at your orientation, fewer of you might be here today.
Gates uses the present simple in I want to thank, expressing a current wish or feeling. The phrase, I guess, indicates he's making an assumption. When you're uncertain about something, you can use this phrase. Example, I guess it might rain today. Also, see how he uses humor with the phrase, I did the best of everyone who failed. This lightens the mood.
Harvard was a phenomenal experience for me. Academic life was fascinating. I used to sit in on lots of classes that I hadn't even signed up for. And dorm life was terrific. I lived up at Radcliffe in Currier House. There were always a lot of people in my dorm room late at night discussing things because everyone knew that I didn't worry about getting up in the morning. That's how I came to be the leader of the antisocial group. We clung to each other as a way of validating our rejection of all those social people. Radcliffe was a great place to live. There were more women up there, and most of the guys were math science types. The combination offered me the best odds, if you know what I mean. That's where I learned the sad lesson that improving your odds doesn't guarantee success.
Here, Gates reminisces about his college days. The past simple is dominant with phrases like, I lived and I learned. When discussing past events, this tense is your go-to. The word odds in this context means chances. If someone says, the odds are in your favor, it means you have a good chance of success.
60 years ago, George Marshall came to this commencement, and he announced a plan to assist the nations of post-war Europe. He said, I quote, I think one difficulty is that the problem is one of such enormous complexity that the very mass of facts presented to the public by press and radio make it exceedingly difficult for the man in the street to reach a clear appraisement of the situation. It is virtually impossible at this distance to grasp at all the real significance of the situation. 30 years after Marshall made his address, which was 30 years ago, as my class graduated without me, technology was emerging that would make the world smaller, more open, more visible, less distant. The emergence of low-cost personal computers gave rise to a powerful network that has transformed opportunities for learning and communicating.
Bill introduces a historical context discussing George Marshall. The phrase "I think" is a softener making statements less direct. An example could be, "I think she might come to the party." Also, "It is virtually impossible" uses virtually for emphasis, meaning it's very close to being impossible.
The magical thing about this network is not just that it collapses distance and makes everyone your neighbor. It also dramatically increases the number of brilliant minds we can bring in to work together on the same problem. And it scales up the rate of potential innovation to a staggering degree. At the same time, for every person who has access to this technology, 5 people don't. That means many creative minds are left out of this discussion. Smart people with practical intelligence and relevant experience who don't have the technology to hone their talents or contribute their ideas to the world. We need as many people as possible to gain access to this technology because these advances are triggering a revolution in what human beings can do for one another.
The word magical is an adjective that means extraordinary or delightful. If you say, "The view was magical," you're emphasizing its beauty. Gates also uses the modal verb can in can bring in, indicating ability or potential.
They are making it possible, not just for national governments, but for universities, corporations, small organizations, and even individuals to see problems, see approaches, and measure the impact of their efforts to address the hunger, poverty, and desperation George Marshall spoke of 60 years ago. In line with the promise of this age, I want to exhort each of the graduates here to take on an issue, a complex problem, a deep inequity, and become a specialist on it. If you make it the focus of your career, that would be phenomenal.
Gates introduces a call to action using modal verbs like can to indicate possibility and must to indicate obligation. Making it possible suggests enabling or allowing something. If someone says, "You make it possible for me to dream," they mean you enable or inspire their dreams.
But you don't have to do that to make an impact. For a few hours every week, you can use the growing power of the internet to get informed, find others with the same interests, see the barriers, and find ways to cut through them. Don't let complexity stop you. Be activists. Take on big inequities. I feel sure it will be one of the great experiences of your lives.
The phrase "don't let" is an instruction or advice. For example, "Don't let him go." This section also uses the imperative form "take on," urging listeners to face challenges. "I feel sure" is another softener, expressing confidence but in a mild way.
You graduates are coming of age in an amazing time. As you leave Harvard, you have technology that members of my class never had. You have awareness of global inequity, which we did not have. And with that awareness, you likely also have an informed conscience that will torment you if you abandon these people whose lives you could change with modest effort. You have more than we had. You must start sooner and carry on longer. And I hope you will come back here to Harvard 30 years from now and reflect on what you have done with your talent and your energy. I hope you will judge yourselves not on your professional accomplishments alone, but also on how well you have addressed the world's deepest inequities. on how well you treated people a world away who have nothing in common with you but their humanity. Good luck.
Gates uses the present simple in you have to describe current possessions or qualities. The phrase come of age means to mature or grow up. So if someone says she has come of age, they mean she has grown up or matured. He concludes by using the modal verb must, indicating a strong recommendation or necessity. Fantastic work, learners! We've journeyed through Bill Gates' Harvard speech, uncovering grammar gems and enriching our vocabulary. Revisit this speech to solidify your learning and always be on the lookout for more English nuances in your daily readings.